tell us.
Hey.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Daily Dose and our pre-record. We have an exciting guest with us, Terence. Terence, what's your last name? It completely left me.
It's Lundy.
Lundy, yes. Sorry. I thought, oh my gosh, I guess I could stop and we could start again, or I could just acknowledge that, look how little blushy I've gotten. I kind of dropped the ball on that one. Sorry, Terence.
No worries, no problem.
Terence, tell us where we're talking to you from, because it's going to make everyone pea green.
I currently am on the big island of Hawaii in Kailua Kona. I've been here since October, and I'm hoping to make this my long-term home, although that between me and my girl, it seems to be we're about a 2-year in and out. So
what got you to Hawaii?
Crazy story. We decided we were going to live in Mexico, and we moved to Merida, which is in the middle of the Yucatan, about 2 years ago. Bought a house, did the things that you do down there, really loved it there. Other than the fact that it's brutally hot a lot of the year there, 105 plus, about 8 months out of the year. So we were down there, and then COVID hit. My girl is in the music industry, and she came back from Florida and from a conference of some sort, and literally the next day the COVID stuff started to rear its ugly head, and we thought, we have I live on a tugboat as well. I don't know if that's of any interest. We have a tugboat in the Bay Area that we live on, and we decided we better get back to the world where there's healthcare, because at that point we had no idea what was going to happen. We came back, and like I said, my girl and I are big movers and trying different places out. I woke up one night and I saw that famous glow of the iPad interface about 3 a.m. I did the sideways look, and I said, "What are you doing?" And she was on the Zillow of Kona, or whatever it is. And I kid you not, that was July, and before the week was over, we were making an offer on a place sight unseen, and we're here. We're here.
Wow. We are not quite that adventurous, so I'm a little bit envious of that.
It's a very cool thing to be able to do. It's a gift of where I've been and how I've gotten here, and I feel very blessed. My kids are all older, so they all have their own lives, and we keep a home base in the Bay Area because of the way we are living our lives. But my mom's there, and she's 85, and my kids are in the Bay Area as well. So we get back there fairly regularly, although not very much. Well, I tell you what, I had no plan of being here, right? So when she did this, I was like, I'm not paying for anything. We just moved to Mexico. You're out of your goddamn mind. And I got here, and I was here for 3 days, and I was like, that's it. I'm out. I'm staying. I don't have any reason to go anywhere. We got in at a good time, found a cool little piece of property, and here we are, lucky as lucky can be.
Well, I just today in my memories popped up that we were in Hawaii 4 years ago. So Maz is always,
you're due for a trip.
Yes. Yeah, Maz is always vying for a way back to Hawaii. So when I read your email that said that's where you were, I was almost afraid to even tell Maz. I knew it was going to.
Well, you guys are welcome to come and visit when all of this chaos is done. There is an actual guest thing, like I said, that we're living in. And it's right here, and it's amazing. It's a great island. It's it's the biggest of the islands, so it's super diverse, and I've lived in Maui before, and after a period of time, you start to feel like, I gotta get out of here. But this so far, and like I said, I've only been here since October. I made her commit to a 5-year plan here, though.
Well, we can take you up on that offer then, Terence.
Yeah, which is good till canceled, but yes. So it's very cool here, and we're very, like I said, I feel very fortunate, and it's again a gift of the 17-year journey I've been on, or road that I've been on, to try to gain some mental fitness, and here I am.
Yeah.
So that's a good transition. Let's go back into that, because even though we could talk about Hawaii all day, I don't know that our guests care that much about Hawaii.
I'm trying to stop myself asking you hundreds of questions. So
We can do that offline if you'd like
Okay,
to,
okay.
anytime.
So Terence, tell us about your kind of there to hear story, starting wherever you would like to go back to,
Sure.
that got you to this point.
Sure. So I guess the best way to start is, or maybe I can use my tugboat as an analogy, if you don't mind.
No.
That tugboat is an old Navy tugboat, and it was set up to be deployed for one operation. It never went. Then it was set up to be deployed to another operation, and it never went. Which is kind of my life cycle, right? I would start to do something and I'd never fully finish it, and then it then ended up being kind of just poking around in the bay by itself as a kind of a working tugboat, but not really. And then it was pretty derelict, and this guy that we bought it from bought it and repurposed her and brought her back from the dead, basically. And that's kind of how I feel about my life. I came into this thing and things were super chaotic. I did horrible things. If I were to spend a lot of time dwelling on them, I might bring myself and all of us into a deep depression. But I moved into this recovery world about 17 years ago, going on 18 years. And I decided that I wanted to be, committed to this, because I've come out of the technology world, and as you guys are well aware, this particular, well, our healthcare system in general is a wreck, but the mental health, and then even the subset of substance use disorders portion of it is broken, in my opinion. Is extremely broken, in my opinion. And coming out of tech and being a process person, I spent a lot of time going to different facilities. I got lucky and got sober in AA. But that doesn't work for any and everybody. As a matter of fact, if we look at the batting average, we wouldn't even be on a T-ball team if we were batting the way AA is. We would not be able to play. But again, I got lucky. I believe that's a function of reality for me, is that what came to mind while doing that is I was sharing at a bunch of different facilities, and it became very apparent to me that there's no real client in the center of any of these care modalities, right? That they have a very, very interesting kind of, if wherever you go, there's kind of they don't say it, but there's a one size fits all kind of, we're going to put you in these things, you're going to do these things, and this is what's going to happen. And then the reality that I found too is that there was no, what I call the long tail of recovery, which is that, 1 plus 2, 3, 4, 5 year engagement. And really most of these facilities were relying on 12-step programs or smart recovery, but mostly 12-step programs to provide that. And what I found for myself is what was really most advantageous about the AA community and the NA community for me was that the community. That's what kept me in the game. That's what helped me to stay in the game. I did my 12 steps a bunch of times. I've sponsored, at one point in time, I was sponsoring 35 guys, which is ridiculous. I was out of my mind. I was in that pink cloud on fire. I'm going to save the world. And, try to change AA as well as I was there. A bit of an egomaniac at times. My sponsor says I'm a VIPOS. I'm a very important piece of shit. And I vacillate between the two of those regularly. But and that's where it came to. I started a company. The idea was tech enablement, or in a coordinated care, or a cooperative care methodology. I didn't like the idea of this, all of this stuff started 10 years ago. And now we're starting to see this new genre, and you guys, I believe, are included, of people that are saying, you know, there's better ways, there's alternative ways. We should be working together to figure out those ways, instead of trying to just make, you know, quote unquote abstinence be the only definition of sobriety, which I don't even know what the definition of sobriety is anymore. We continue to argue about that. What's recovery? We continue to argue about that. In the meantime, nothing's happening, or very little is happening, or it's happening very slowly. So I believe, you know, bringing about meaningful change was kind of the goal, and to really help people that are suffering from mental health and substance use disorders and need care. And the common bit of all of that, the connective tissue of every single journey that I'm aware of, is the person, the single person, me. So I believe that, you know, through a social constructionist process, the only way we're going to change this is to change that stigma. And it's, you know, you don't get me started. This is, you know, the war on drugs, and it's a policy issue. The only way it's going to change, and COVID has actually helped to facilitate that to some degree, is a push and a pull, right? We're going to need some push from the third-party payers and the government to make policy that makes sense. But we're also going to need the consumer, quote unquote, to pull and demand these things be a part of their care. And COVID has done some of that, right? Has made people realize that there is, you know, there's a stepped care process, and that we can do some of this stuff remotely, maybe better than we're doing it currently, which is, and often not at all. So I think I found that we were really good in our system of, I like to use that analogy of people going over the waterfall. And we're real good at catching them once they've gone over the waterfall. And if they didn't die, then we fish them out, dry them off, and try to send them on their way. I think we're trying to, I think collectively, as the new genre of recovery ideas has come out, is try to catch people earlier. Hopefully even better yet, let's get them before they get in the water. That's kind of where Pobel, which is the name of our company. Is that a dog I see there?
Yes.
Yes, she sleeps all day long until daily dose, and then she does this, hey, 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 hey. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm here.
He's gone off the phone again now. We're good.
Yeah, I love the dogs. But so the name of the company is Pobel, which means people, community in Irish and Gaelic, and so that's how I got here. I was born an Irish Catholic kid, American Irish Catholic kid. So I was born thirsty and guilty, as they say. And I went at it hard for 41 years. You know, my stories go from, you know, international luxury, drunkenness, and jails and different varieties of countries to, you know, what would be considered gutter, you know, piss in the sink hotel junkie. And I always had jobs, always carried my life, always continued to work towards, quote unquote, the goals that everyone had kind of assessed for me. And then I got, had a moment in time basically, and I was done, which is why I believe AA works. I believe anything works actually when the person is actually done. They're going to apply themselves to this to heal. So I got involved in this. I started as a intensive outpatient program. I took over an intensive outpatient program, and we started to try to use digital tools to hold people accountable, to do assessments, to start to collect data. And here we are now. That's been 7 years later. We stayed under the radar for this entire time. We launched in February.
Okay.
We just started onboarding our first large client. We have a lot of smaller groups on there now. We're very, very keen on peer-to-peer, or what would be considered paraprofessional support. Big proponent of MAT. Big proponent of primary care physicians providing that care as well. And we've built the tools to hopefully help to manage that, and to achieve some sort of what we consider a collaborative methodology, a multi-stakeholder collaborative technology that will hopefully bring about some meaningful change. That's our goal.
So are you doing this work in collaboration with David Whitesock, Terrence? Is this how you know him, or how do you two connect?
Actually, David and I connected because, Recovery Capital is a very interesting thing. And we used Recovery Capital with some of our earlier clients. We worked with young people in recovery at one point in time. We still do, but we helped to build their digitized program. And Recovery Capital is a big topic, but my concern, we have what we call expert. We base that on the screening, brief intervention, referral to treatment model, and that's all of our programming has to fit into that thing, which means it has to have some data security around it. And by security, I mean that it's secure. I mean that there's some way of mapping it, and that there's a result that can be analyzed for an outcome. And David's was the first one I found that actually was really, I mean, he's done he and his group have done a fantastic job of proving this out and sourcing the right appropriate questions, as well as we've taken that a step further and use the other questions, the larger scale questions that he's used for his short questions to build recommendation engines basically around those assessments. So when you are doing a self-assessment, for instance, and you're filling out those things based on your answers to those 24 different quadrants that are in his deal, the machine learning generates a set of new questions that are more specific. So if it's about financial insecurity, for instance, you're going to get more questions about that. And then the recommendation engines that are built for making a informed decision, they generate suggestions for resources, like maybe these courses are would be interesting to you. Or if you're scoring really, really poorly and it sounds like you're in chaos, then the referral to treatment is a fast mode of you need help. You need help, and you need to speak to professionals like you guys pronto. We're not going to give you here's a course on, the disease model of addiction and you're going to be okay. It's like, you need help right now. Let's get you, or if you need to go to the hospital, we're calling the hospital, right? So that's kind of the thing. We're also, like I said, we're very keen on supporting the professionals like yourselves with the peer or the paraprofessional groups. I think the thing that's missing in a lot of these programs is we see since I've started, there's over 1,000 new programs out there that are digital, intensive outpatient-based programs. We're not endorsing or opposing any form of recovery. We're saying that if it's viable and if it's out there, it may help somebody. So why wouldn't we give someone access to take a look at it?
Sure.
And allow the market and the peer groups, both the professionals and the consumer, if you will, basically judge it and say if it's good or bad. But my feeling is for instance, if underwater basket weaving is how you're finding a center and you're staying clean and sane by doing underwater basket weaving, I'll be goddamned if I'm not going to find you some underwater basket weaving resources, regardless of what the professionals may say about its efficacy.
Sure.
So it's more of, we're also trying to build that, because I believe that the cultural stuff gets missed in a lot of these programs, and what better way to address cultural things by putting those resources that are peer-to-peer in the context of that where they are. We just started talking to a group that's Orthodox Jewish, and they have a mental health thing going on, but they have this huge support of community and peers inside of it as well. So that gives it the cultural flavor. We're doing some LGBTQ stuff. The program we started in Sonoma is for 1,000 homeless women. So it's, that's the culture. They're homeless women. And how do we get me started. I won't stop. I drank 3 cups of coffee before I talked to you as well, but in case there was any misunderstanding, I'm super passionate about this. I don't want to, I want to change, disrupt, for lack of a better word, the way that we're doing things. And I don't believe that we are collaborating in a very efficient and effective way. I find the new genre of folk that are out there right now, we're fighting amongst ourselves about definitions of things rather than pushing back on this existing thing that's not working. And so we're kind of getting fragmented. And and instead of getting behind a common narrative, which is, I believe, one of the common narratives can be the RCI. I believe that David's stuff is a very easy place for us to all kind of surround and say, yeah, this is a good start. It's not the end all, it's not the ultimate, but it's a start. Nobody's, if you go around and ask any of these facilities to produce some outcomes for you, you know what you get. There's no such thing, or if there is, they're not showing them to you.
Right.
And or very few. I take it back. I found a couple that are actually very, very transparent, and I appreciate that, but most of them are not. And why is that? Because we're not working together to come up with some common grounds to at least get started. Let's get started. Let's stop talking. Let's stop academicizing everything. Let's get into it. Let's collaborate. Let's try. Let's see what works and what doesn't work, and continue to evolve, assess, evaluate, put it into practice, assess, evaluate, repeat. Just keep going until we get somewhere. And I believe we've seen it working. We're doing a lot with what would be considered for the old PHP model, but a little bit more of a hybrid model of that. Where in Marin County, we're working with a group called Castle and Day One Recovery, who have a lot of clients that come in both, pair by themselves and or come in through the county through drug court or something like that. And so we're putting a primary care physician. MAT as a definite option, if not the way to go, especially for the opioid people. And they are using a tiered approach to care, where the paraprofessionals and then the peer-to-peers, once they learn how to deliver this content and this information, they take up the person behind them. They're responsible for taking on the person behind them. That's how the homeless shelter folk are working as well. Because that's been my experience too. I've gotten way more out of my relationships with other addicts and alcoholics, and how they gave me hope by looking at their journey and how they've gotten places than I got out of any of my rehabilitation options. So
Sure.
I've been to jail, I've done them all, and so I'm excited about the opportunity. I believe that this is going to happen. I'm just hoping that everyone will stop fighting amongst ourselves about what does this mean and what does that mean, and really start putting our heads down and putting the weight of this fragmented group behind a cause that we can actually make some meaningful change, so it can really help some people.
It feels a bit, Terence, like how I think of organized religion. So you've got people of faith who belong to a building or a denomination, and something happens in the denomination and someone says, well, I don't agree with that. I'm going to start my own building, my own denomination, and we're going to be really, really similar, except you drink red wine and I drink rosé wine, and so we can't go to church together.
Yeah, right.
Or, whatever. And I'm not saying that there's not value in the different prisms of the same core philosophy, but listening to you talk, I'm just struck by the idea that while everybody is trying to parse out these actually minute differences, people are dying at horrific rates, and not just dying, but they are ruining the lives of the people around them as well. And so we are watching these ripples come faster and faster and faster and go further and further and further. And the people who could be doing meaningful work, even if they're failing in their efforts, are caught up in, well, you said addict and I don't identify as an addict, so I can't be with you. And I don't want to oversimplify it, because clearly it's a complex issue. Right. But there's so much at stake, while everybody plants their flag in, nope, this is the way, it's got to be this way or no way.
Sure.
I don't know. It feels like you are trying to topple, you and others are trying to topple identity, which is hard because people really get behind their
Sure.
It's been so interesting to talk to people who say, yep, I don't drink anymore. and I don't identify as an addict, or I don't call myself an alcoholic, or I don't go to AA, or I only go to AA, or you
Right.
have to go to
Right.
inpatient, or you should not go to I mean,
Right.
there is no, your point is so appropriate. There is no one size fits all, because guess what? There's no one size fits all for any facet of the human experience.
No, no. David Attenborough said, I think in 1979, that there's, at the time, apparently there were only 4 million mammals or animals and species of plant out there. I believe it's way more than that now, but let's just go along with him, because he is a lord of some sort, right? So,
Yes.
but it was and that means that there's 4 million different ways of survival, right?
Yes.
So when you look at that in the context of the recovery, like you said, whether there's a religious bent to it, I mean, there is some very common things through all mental health, as you guys well know. I mean, there's CBT methodologies, there's DBT, there's a bunch of different things, tools that can be approached. But we don't even really take the time to inform people about those until they're already in recovery, right? It's that you learn that when you're in rehab and get this up front, right? And so, and I totally agree with you. There's this minutia of, and it's also, like I said, it's everyone seems to be jockeying to defend their fiefdom that doesn't even exist yet, right? So they're like, I'm the new guru, I'm not AA, I'm the alternative to AA. And that's where I'm standing. I'm not going to change, my position. I'm not open to any other options. What we're suggesting inside is to basically it should be a market consumer facing option for everybody, and you should see, not unlike a Spotify or an Amazon, you should be able to see if you have a PTS type of an experience. You should be able to see the psychoeducation information that's available to you for you to start to be informed, so that you're able to make good decisions, right? Healthy people make healthy communities. We're not trying to make healthy people until they're unhealthy. So
Right,
it doesn't
right.
it doesn't make any sense. And then all the stigma conversations now, and I do a lot with ex-cons, people getting out of prison. There's a whole bunch of stigma around that, and slowly a little less and less. And then I don't identify as, I mean, my point is, I don't care what you identify as. If you're suffering in some way, even if it's an event driven or a moment in time, make an informed decision. Let's give the options. Let's tell you what's available in your community for immediate assistance if you need immediate assistance. But like you said too, there's those that are affected. Those are addiction or mental health adjacent people that get no help, right? Or very little help. And how do you support them? I believe education of some sort, being informed, is how people make informed decisions. At least that's by definition informed, right? Is having information. And we try to make the agents that we've taken the agency away from the person, and we've put it in the hands of either the hospital or AA or your sponsor, or and so people they learn to not take responsibility in some way as well. And so we're also built an accountability partnershiping process where you build your own partnership. Basically, you build your own. It may initially have your probation officer in there, it may have your priest or your who knows. But just like it is with any relationship, things change, and you might want to replace Dana because she's not nice anymore. I'm gonna get me a different person to represent my women on my team, right? But it should be my decision, and it should be, unless it's in the context of where there's contingency management or some sort of other court mandated thing. But that's only a moment in time too. So once that person gets out of that situation, what happens? Well, you're done. You don't have any either. So I mean, it's that idea of recovery being discovery, and you start to discover some things about yourself. But if you don't continue to find ways to be engaged, discovering new things, you fall off, you disappear, fall off the track. And the statistics seem to be pretty clear. People that stay, and we can define sober in any way that you want, but that stay in the game, let's say for 5 years, are with the amount of, it's 85% likely they're going to stay in the game. So all of our treatment modalities are 90 days maximum, maybe.
Amazing.
It's ridiculous. So, but I don't believe that everyone needs to go to rehab either, which is another problem for me, is to watch these, because I worked in that industry, and I'd watch them source persons, and they don't even ask them what the problem is. They just ask, like, this first, second question is, whose insurance do you have? Well, if you got Blue Shield or something else, you're welcome. Well, but I didn't even tell you what I have. I have a hangnail. I'm not, oh, that's not us, but you're already there. You're ahead in the bed. And I believe there's really good people in all of those industries. I think that just the way that the process has evolved, the motivation to change is not there.
Well, it's a moneymaker in a weird way.
Yeah.
I mean, like
In a weird,
as with sort of all of our systemic problems, if for instance, it didn't benefit private prison owners to see more people in prison, we wouldn't have marijuana sellers sitting in
right,
jail. I just,
right,
if it was a detriment to incarcerate someone, we wouldn't
absolutely.
incarcerate people that
No,
didn't need to be incarcerated. We would only incarcerate people for whom that was our best and only option. It would
right,
never be our first option.
right. And
Um,
that's the same with rehab as well, right?
yeah.
Which we could only be putting people into rehab that are really, I mean, then you hear this complaint that we don't have enough of those resources. We'll stop filling beds with people that just need a 30-day vacation. Let's stop that, right? That's
Yeah,
like,
so,
I want to go to rehab right now. And I've been sober for 17 years. I would
and you're in
love,
Hawaii, Terrence.
yeah,
So,
yeah, spend 17. Yeah, exactly. I would love to spend.
You are in rehab.
Yeah, exactly. I'm on a perpetual rehab. It's an ongoing process, I would guess. But I agree with you. There's so much to be changed, and a part of that is, now the big conversation about stigma around if you're an addict or you're not an addict, or your harm reduction. It becomes this. It's the like the Snoopy teacher in the background.
yep.
And
Well,
then
and
it's
so, I can say from our perspective, because if you've watched the show, I was like I grew up under a rock, naive about addiction. So naive. I knew about it from like Meg Ryan's When a Man Loves a Woman. That was the extent of my knowledge of addiction. And so when Maz was in the hospital getting clean, I mean, for me, it was you go to inpatient rehab or that's it, because that's all I knew based
right,
on one movie.
right,
So nobody said to me, you know what, he may not be a great candidate for that because he may not need treatment that
Yeah.
extreme. I would
right.
never have heard that if someone had said it to me. In fact, I will say this social worker who I malign all the time, don't know her, had one meeting with her. I know. I hope that she never ever remembers us. But
Meet us.
yeah, me. Sorry. I hope she doesn't remember me. She kind of tried to indicate to me that he may not need inpatient rehab, and she may as well have said to me, "Well, he doesn't need oxygen." I decided I knew absolutely what had to happen, and it was that or nothing. Well, if someone had sat me down and said, "Dana, here's what you don't understand about addiction. Let us just talk you through all the possibilities," I don't know that I would have acted differently, because I was operating from a place of sheer panic and
Sure.
wanting to eradicate this. I did not want to like have well, let's try this and see how it goes and have him fall. So my point in all of this is that the lack of information from every angle is massive. So as I was listening to you talk about sort of these questions and providing people with all these resources, my big question for you, and then I will stop and you can talk because I know this is actually your field, is how do you get people who are in this place of intense addiction to even pay attention to the fact that there are options? How do you get them to hear it? Because I don't believe Maz would have entertained the conversation with you.
Right. So I get therein lies the stepped care conversation, right? Is if we can catch people a little bit sooner than when they've already gone over, Maz and myself had clearly gone over the waterfall and probably over another waterfall a little further down the road, and probably were fighting people that were trying to get us out of the water. So no, we're not going to hear any of that stuff. The people adjacent to us will.
Yeah.
The people that are around us that love and care for us, they will. So those are the people where I feel we should be targeting in those situations. Let's inform the people that are going to help to make an informed decision while this person's unable to make an informed decision. But even then, once they're there, I don't really have a good answer for how to engage people like that. I think that what we're seeing a lot of is we're catching people on their second round, and they're way more interested in hearing it on their second round. Yeah. So that's where I see, but yeah, you're right. It's not going to be easy. I also think primary care physicians are sorely misused or underused resource. They see these people way in advance of when they end up in the emergency rooms or when they end up in rehab, for sure. And we've talked to, several hundred of them, and they're woefully under informed about addiction.
How willing are they to learn?
What's that?
How willing are they to change?
A good amount of them seem to be, which is, that's a great, way to also get me off the phone with you and say, yeah, make more contact with me, send me what you got. But what we have is we're being very selective about how we're approaching people, because we're not big enough to handle a big insurgence of folk right at this point. But what we've done is built what is called a MAT companion. So basically it's a digitized program that, in addition to medically assisted treatment, you also get this, education resource. And then, like I said, like the PHP models that we're trying to put together. I hate using those words, but that's the common language that we have, with the local resources or the culturally sensitive resources that are regionally specific to that person, so we can meet them where they are, rather than this idea, where does it say anywhere in any of this literature, evidence-based or otherwise, that you need to be removed from your world for 30 or 60 days and sent to, North Carolina or something. I don't read that in any of the literature.
And some of the literature and legal definitions refer to addiction, and particularly alcoholism, as being a habitual drunkard, which legally means a habitual drunkard is someone who has lost their house through their addiction. Now, how do you battle that if that's an official legal definition of an alcoholic?
Which again goes back to how naive I was, and how naive many of us are. He never got a DUI, so I thought, well, he must not be an alcoholic. I don't know.
We weren't in danger of losing the house, so so. And
I was. You're right.
Yeah.
That's a crazy definition, though. It's like, when you think about those types of definitions, and I love that one. I'm going to have to look that up again, because I remember reading that. But losing the house idea. But you guys, where do you guys live?
Fargo, North Dakota.
So there's the wealthy community up the street probably has just as many addicted human beings as a percentage of their population, but because they have resources, there's no way they're going to lose their house, right? So that person is what then? They're not a habitual alcoholic. They're sophisticated. They got their pinky up when they drink. So again, there is the conversation about stigma and definitions that I don't believe is ever going to change, because we don't want to use, it's a social construct that is baked in. It is baked heavy in. Like you said, Dana, we believe these things. The industry has done a fantastic job of building the fear, uncertainty, and doubt problem around the fact that if you don't get your loved one in here now, they're going to die. I mean, that's basically what they tell you. They're going to die.
Absolutely.
And it's this immediacy of, we're not informed. We don't know. They're the professional. Yeah, I love this person. We'll put him in a rehab. And how do we change those? And that's just in our little world. Moving further upstream, like policymakers, they have those same kinds of definitions that they're still developing policy from. How do we change those things? Everywhere else in the world uses some sort of medically assisted treatment as a primary care process. Every first world country, we don't.
Yeah.
We're an abstinent based. This is it. And I'm not saying abstinent based is not a solution. It's a solution. It's not the solution.
Well,
Neither is
it's
medically
constantly
assisted
for
treatment.
sex
It's not
education
the
as
solution.
well.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's a possibility to not get pregnant. It's not the possibility to not get pregnant. It's
Exactly.
not the only way to be a responsible drinker.
Right. 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 And I think there, it's this further upstream conversation that I try to talk about too, because we talk about preventative things. And what always comes to mind is, this is your brain on drugs, the old egg
Right.
thing, which didn't do diddly, right? But how about if we went into high schools and we actually taught them how to use naltrexone and why they might need to have the ability to get somebody out of an OD. When you read a real life experience of seeing what that might look like, that, and if nothing else, at least they're prepared when it happens. Because as people, kids my kids' age, they've seen a couple people OD, right? That's the scariest part for me is will we ever be able to change that social construct? Will we be able to? And I believe the only way to do it is through what I profess is social constructionism, right? Where we actually have to all be willing to collaborate and, it's either we're evolving this process or we're just revolving around the same freaking BS, which I feel like that's what we're doing. We're just revolving around the same solution, the same thing. We just put pig on it, lipstick on the pig and call it something different this year.
Yep.
And it's like that. It's like diets too. Like the new solution for this is keto, and then keto's out. It's eating pig turds. I don't know. It's whatever it is, right? And that's the constant evolution, which I think is great, right? We should be able to experience all of those things for ourselves and understand what the consequences may be of doing it that way, what the possibilities of recovery are, but we don't even have outcomes as a possibility to show what transformation may or may not happen in a situation or with a certain modality. There's not enough people collecting that data, right?
Yeah.
We can't even do simple trend analyses about demographically speaking, these people are predisposed to X, Y, or Z, right? And then there's all the co-occurring stuff that goes on. I've not seen anybody, I don't know about you, Maz, but I was an alcoholic and a drug addict, but I also had, crazy problems. I was not well and still maybe not well, but again, my sponsor is a funny guy. My grandfather said, Terence, if you continue to wear a clown costume, you're likely to become a clown. Yeah. And that was what happened, right? Is that I insisted on hanging out with these people, but they didn't make me a drug addict or alcoholic. That's what I wanted to do. So I had to find those people, and I found them.
Justify what you wanted.
And this something that's been bugging me for a long time is what do you think if you get such resistance to say we want to educate you to be able to spot someone who might need help? Do you think how much do you think weighs into that is the person you're trying to say we want to educate you to do this is someone who probably thinks they drink too much but doesn't want to admit it and doesn't want someone else to show them they're not getting away with it as much as they think they're getting away with it? Do you think that plays into this too?
I think, yeah, it absolutely does. And I think, and I think too, that part of the solution to that is, a little bit more anonymity as far as the self-assessment portion of it. Cause I know for myself, I knew I had a problem in 4th grade, and I continued it on until I was 41 years old. That somebody said to me is that's the most painful time in your life, right? Is when you know that you need to make a change, and then the time that you actually make the change. That period of time is for me, it was 32 years. I didn't make that change. And when I did make the change, I then went out and started educating myself because there was no resources that I could find that were readily available. I went out and read, white paper after white paper. I studied angle. I studied, I'm an insane person when it comes to research. I love data. I love information. That's why I did so well in AA. I took that book. They did the, the serenity prayer on my way out the door. They gave me the big book. I was pissed off because I didn't know there was a prayer that I needed to know. So I was already an outsider. Rushed home. I read the big book looking for the serenity prayer, not in the goddamn book, but I read it and read it and read it. And I ended up reading the first, the doctor's opinion 4 times. And I couldn't deny that I was a lot of those things that were listed there. And I think that little bit of, again, a moment in time, right? So it's when we catch somebody, and where are they in that process? If they have access, if accessibility is not, if the gatekeepers of accessibility aren't doctors and lawyers and courts, and it's me saying, I want this information, or I want to look into this information, and you're slowly being coaxed to take a look at and say, hey, it sounds like, based on the answers to this, screening that you took, it sounds like you're in bad shape, or you could be in bad shape. Risky at best is the one we like to use, right? Risky behavior. Would you like to get more? Now, often people don't want any more because they already know, and they know there's not. But now we've confirmed it, and so if they've done it anonymously by backing out of it, it never happened. But we're never in a position to, again, catch people before they go over the falls, because we don't want to have this conversation or make it accessible to anybody before they've gone over the fall. I agree with you that the magnitude of what I'm saying is possible is enormous, and it's going to take policy, and it's going to take consumers and all of the people in between to push for psychoeducation as being a primary part. And I'm not saying that I'm not even saying that it should be just for mental health or drug addiction. I think education for me to self-steward my own care for anything, physical, everything, the information is there. Why shouldn't I have access to it so that I can, at the very least, ask appropriate questions?
Right.
And you talk to any doctor, and they'll say, oh, WebMD has been the worst thing that's ever happened to us, right? Because we're constantly explaining why you don't have cancer because you have, because you can't comb your hair today, or whatever the reason is, right? I disagree. Because that's an opportunity to engage somebody in a conversation. They obviously have anxiety or something about that. That's an opportunity to engage that person, not an opportunity to tell them they're stupid and this is a dumb thing for you to do. But what if there was a resource?
Yeah, the best indication I got that I was actually an alcoholic was, and I've talked about this before, when I had to be in rehab to be given a simple bog standard test of how much I drank. Then I was told to do it again without lying, and then I was told to double my answer. And then when I looked at that answer, I thought, all right, you have my attention. But I was in rehab before anyone ever thought of doing that with me.
Right.
Plus,
so a lot of our stuff is self-assessment stuff as well, which is all, that's all DSM and ICD. It's all the same stuff. But what you hear from, here's the one reason that I had to shut down my intensive outpatient program. The person I hired to do this stuff, to use the online assessment tools during a brief interviewing process, which is the normal way that you do it anyways, instead of on a piece of paper, I wanted you to do it on the damn computer. I came in and was like, where's the data? Where's the gathered? Where'd you put the information? She said, oh, I've not been using that. I'm like, well, why not? She said, well, Terence, you can't do it this way, because I have a magic eye. I was like, you need to pack up your gear and get to a mental institution pronto, because you should not be helping people. You do not have a magic eye. Just for clarity, you do not have a magic eye. And that's when I realized that the gatekeepers at that level are resistant to this as well, right? They're resistant to the idea of self-stewardship. They're resistant to the idea that people may be able to make good decisions for themselves. Sorry, I'm plugging in. They may be able to make good decisions for themselves, and how about this idea, Maz, is if you had built a while you were in rehab, if you had built an accountability community, an accountability partnership that was local to your home, where you got in touch with your AA, if that's how you went about it. You had your psychologist, your psychiatrist, obviously your lovely wife, the people, your buddies, your mom, your dad, whatever, in this accountability community, and where you were making weekly contracts with yourself to meet specific goals along this week. And just me, I'm going to show up at my meetings. I'm going to show up to this. I'm going to do, I'm going to start drinking water. I'm going to start with little, I'm going to exercise, whatever those things might be. So that you start to realize that community is basically, as far as I can tell, is one of the most curative threads through all mental health. If I can build a community, if I can build those resources, I can make it now my dogs are in here. So my girl is on her way out to lunch, so we have to put all the dogs in one room.
Oh, sure.
Or they will chase her all the way to Kona. I'm way second fiddle in this world.
Has been so
Yeah.
interesting and so much to think about. I feel like I have to kind of get off and process a little bit all the steps, because it's so easy to try to boil addiction down to, like, but wait, act now and
Right.
do this and then you'll get this thing free. And it's just, it is as complex as every human being's experience and desire and ability to manage whatever it is they have to manage. So there is,
Absolutely.
there's probably not a 1 billion sizes fit all. There's probably only one size fits you.
Right.
And one
Right.
size fits you and fits,
Yeah.
that is, when you think of it that way, that's like a tsunami coming at you. And how do you stop that? And by stop it, I mean, how do you begin to redirect it so that people can begin to swim in the water, not be shoved
Right.
under it and drown?
Run over. Like I said in the beginning, there's the only common denominator in any single person's journey is that person.
Yeah.
That's them. They're it. Nothing else is the same. There may be similar treatment modalities that are applied to that person, but the person that's delivering to them is different. There's so many factions of it that I believe, and I will likely die on my sword saying this, is that self-stewardship should be the ultimate goal. We should be teaching people how to steward their own lives, how to steward their own wellness. And yes, people need more help in the beginning of time. They may need help along the way. It's like the tugboat situation for me, right? That thing, if I want it not to rust and fall into the ocean, requires a lot of care.
Yeah.
Some of it I can do on my own, but man, do I need a lot of help from professionals to do a lot of that work.
Yeah.
And if I don't get that help, that thing is gonna rust. It's a small piece of the goddamn Golden Gate Bridge. And when I get on one end and I finish doing my rust to get to the other side, I'm starting all over again. And that's how I feel about my recovery. Is I constantly have to be engaged with me, because it's about a relationship with me ultimately that makes me healthy, that makes me communicate with my kids better, the people around me. I'm a much kinder person because of what's happened in my recovery. My sponsor says it all the time. You came into this thing violent, then you became just passive aggressive, and now you're just homicidally sarcastic. So.
Well, that's a pretty good evolution.
I like that one.
Work in progress, right? Work in progress.
Well, Terence, thank
Terence,
you
thank
so
you.
much. And I would say bank on us coming to visit, because it's definitely
Anytime, you guys.
time.
Would love to have you. Would love to
If
show you around.
Yeah, if you ever feel like coming to North Dakota, you look us up.
Yep.
I actually love North Dakota.
I wouldn't recommend you winter here, but
No, but I love North Dakota. I've motorcycled through there a couple different times, and it's beautiful in there. So I'd love to. Yeah, absolutely. It's not on my top 10 list right at this very moment, but it will. it may evolve back around at some
Okay,
point in
well,
time.
we will make it happen. Thank you so much.
Apparently, North
Pleasure.
Dakota is almost famous for the people that want to visit every state. North Dakota is apparently the last one
We are the most last state visited state in the
They're
nation.
not number 50. If we're gonna hit that one, that's
Our Convention and Visitors Bureau has a shirt that says, "Finally, I hit 50."
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you guys listening to me ramble and rant. I get on a bully pulpit about this stuff, but I feel very passionately about it, and I'm not shy or bashful about saying what I think. I'm also not shy or bashful admitting that I'm wrong. So if somebody can prove to me that my premise is off base, I'll change my tune and I will say it out loud. I'd love to show both of you or give you the opportunity to look at some of the collaborative tools that we've built to see what your thoughts are on them.
We'd love to see it.
And see how, I mean, the idea is to be able to help, right? That's the idea. Is how do I effectively, and there's not enough of you guys, the professionals and the paraprofessionals, to handle the magnitude of the problem currently, let alone what's coming down the pipe. It's like you said, there's a tsunami about to hit us and we are not prepared.
Yeah.
Well, have an excellent day, and we'll talk soon, I hope. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hold on one second. We're going to do this. I'm going to do the pre-record piece right now, and then I'll just cut it out and put it to the front.
Oh, sure.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's us. It's Daily Dose. We ended up needing to do a pre-record because our guest, Terence Lundy, lives in Hawaii. And so he said he would get up, but that would be 2:30 in the morning for him to join us live. So we opted out of asking him to do that and instead pre-recorded. Wow, an incredibly interesting conversation.
It's an interest. If you can stay with it, it's an interesting talk.
Yeah, boy, he's got a lot of thoughts and is working on some really, really interesting ideas that I would argue, as with so many of the things that we talk about, are interesting ideas for almost every facet of life.
They are. You're absolutely right.
So join us and enjoy Terence Lundy, and we'll be back live with you tomorrow. Thanks.
See you then.
Bye.